She said it was a charity trip. 1 jet, 2 aides, no cargo, no complications. But at 4:12 a.m., a royal guard noticed something strange. The cabin lights were already on, and the override code used to unlock the jet. It belonged to a man who retired 2 decades ago. What the guard found inside wasn't a threat to the crown. It was something much older and far more dangerous. A locked cabin, a secret key, and a name that hadn't appeared on a manifest in 20 years. Now, before we show you the exact moment that final door opened, and the man who stepped out of Camilla's past, drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from, smash that like button and tap subscribe with the bell icon on. Because this wasn't a security breach. It was the quiet return of something the monarchy thought it had buried. REF Northwood was a place of order, not emotion. By 04:12 that morning, the auxiliary hangars along the eastern perimeter were still soaked in night moisture, their steel walls slick with condensation and ghosted over by soft beams of sodium light. A faint hum pulsed beneath the concrete from the buried fuel lines, while the echo of footsteps traveled lazily through the silence. Most of the base remained asleep, but near Hangar 9B, the Royal Auxiliary slot, someone was awake. Sergeant Ellis Grant moved quietly along the painted access lines near the rear intake vent of the BAE 146 jet. The aircraft stood under partial floodlight, its silver body beaded with dew, engine covers removed, boarding stairs not yet deployed. This jet belonged exclusively to Queen Camilla for engagements, short-haul diplomatic events, or private travel under royal discretion. It wasn't flashy, but it was hers. Ellis, Coldstream guard, seconded to aviation integrity rotation, carried no rifle this morning, just a digital clearance band on one wrist and a handheld maintenance tablet in the other. His task was simple: conduct a full security sweep before the aircraft was prepped for the charity outreach trip logged later that morning, except the aircraft was already awake. He paused halfway through the fuselage check. Cabin lights, faint and yellow through the tinted windows, were already on. He checked the manifest. No crew had boarded. No aides listed for early loading. No fuel team scheduled before 0510. Frowning, he turned to the wall-mounted access log. RAF jets recorded every digital code used to open a hatch. He navigated to the overnight entries and stopped cold. ZO 358 manual override used code HGT5A. Ellis stared. That code belonged to someone who hadn't set foot on this base in over a decade. Sir Alder Harrington, former equerry to the Queen Consort, retired from royal service 20 years ago. Impossible. The door shouldn't have accepted it. The override ban should have been deactivated long ago. No non-crew personnel had clearance before flight prep. No one, retired or not, should have been able to access this aircraft. He keyed his radio calmly. Northwood Aviation Control. This is Sergeant Ellis Grant confirming early activity on Jet 9B, cabin lights active. Access recorded at 0358 using non-active override code belonging to Harrington Alder. Please advise. The reply came with soft static and hesitation. Negative, Sergeant. That code was retired in 20. No one should be on that aircraft. Confirm visual. Ellis scanned the pad. No movement, no aides, no crew vehicles, just the jet glowing faintly from within, like a secret starting to stir. He responded calmly. Visual negative, exterior appears clear. We'll proceed with sweep. And yet, even as he said it, the back of his neck tightened, not with danger, but with certainty. Something ES or someone me was already inside that aircraft, and whoever it was had used a key no one was supposed to still have. The aircraft door clicked open with a soft metallic sigh, followed by the subtle hiss of pressurization. Rebalancing, Sergeant Ellis Grant stepped inside, boots landing silently on the ribbed metal floor of the main boarding vestibule. The interior was dim but not dark. Cabin lights were running on low cycle, a warm amber glow casting faint reflections off polished brass railings and cream leather upholstery. Ellis moved forward with practiced quiet, his steps precise, his eyes alert. His clearance had already activated the onboard security log. Everything he saw now would be time-stamped and documented. This wasn't a search. It was an audit. The manifest printed 2 hours ago listed passenger Camilla Queen Consort Aide, 1 L.B. Exley, Personal Secretary Aide, 2R. Nola's Flight Liaison Cargo, none. Security internal only, confidential items none declared. He stepped into the main aisle and paused. 2 crystal glasses sat in the fold-out tray just behind the starboard galley divider, not empty, used. One still held a pale amber liquid, untouched long enough for the condensation to vanish. The other bore a faint rim mark. Across from them sat a silver service tray, warm tea, a porcelain cup, and a second cup stacked beside it, with a spoon still resting inside. 2 sets, 2 users, and no aides had arrived yet. Ellis continued forward. In the rear galley alcove, a coat was folded neatly over the edge of the service cabinet, dark charcoal wool, clearly bespoke. He knelt and inspected the inner lining, initials Ah. He froze. Alder Harrington. The man whose override code had opened the aircraft. The scent hit him next, subtle but unmistakable. Not aftershave, cologne. Old-fashioned, masculine, warm, with base notes of bergamot and clove. Nothing like the Queen Consort's usual floral veil. He straightened, eyes narrowing slightly now. He passed through the forward passenger area, glancing toward each cabinet, checking each drawer visually for tampering, nothing out of place, but the inconsistencies were stacking. At the far end of the cabin, just before the cargo bulkhead, sat the sealed compartment, a private lounge retrofitted into Camilla's aircraft years ago during her transition to full royal travel status. It had a single hatch flush with the side paneling, an air-sealed door with a small black keypad, biometric and passcode locked. Ellis tapped in the universal flight access code issued to all security staff. It blinked red. Access denied. He tried again. Red. Denied. Royal aviation policy dictated that every cabin lock resets upon engine shutdown to allow morning inspection teams to override in emergencies. This one hadn't. He stepped back and glanced around. No sound, no movement, but that door was locked from the inside. He pulled out his device and logged the breach. Rear cabin failed. Universal override. Possible active lockdown from within. Recommend custodial notification. He lifted his comms mic once more. Not urgent, just measured. Control. This is Grant. Manifest doesn't match interior setup. Requesting level 1 photo doc and standby alert. I believe we have early access occupancy. Possible misfiled personnel. Please advise. Standby, Sergeant. He clicked off. Inside the jet, nothing moved, but Ellis could feel it. The air had shifted. The jet wasn't awaiting departure. It was guarding something, and he just stepped into the quiet before it surfaced. The air outside had sharpened. Wind curled low through the northward tarmac, dragging damp coils of mist along the ground as the sun threatened the horizon, but never quite broke it. Sergeant Ellis Grant stood just inside the fuselage, tucked behind the forward bulkhead, posture straight, hand resting against the inner handle of the galley wall. And then came the motorcade. 3 black estate vehicles pulled onto the auxiliary ramp. No insignia, no ceremonial flags, just understated speed and too many tinted windows. The middle vehicle stopped exactly 10 meters from the jet's extended stairs. The rear door opened. Camilla emerged without hesitation. She wore a tailored charcoal gray travel coat with a high collar turned up against the cold and low-heeled boots designed more for stability than elegance. Her posture was erect, every movement composed, not rushed, not casual. She glanced once toward the jet's nose cone, then toward the cockpit window, and began walking briskly toward the aircraft. Behind her, 2 aides followed, one clutching a slim briefcase, the other tapping into a wireless comms device, eyes down. Neither addressed Ellis. Neither made eye contact. Their rhythm felt rehearsed, like a team executing an extraction with royal decorum. At the base of the stairs, Camilla spoke briefly to the pilot. A quick nod, a single phrase, almost inaudible. No ground delay, wheels up as soon as I'm seated. She began her ascent without waiting for acknowledgement. Ellis met her at the top of the stairs. "Mom," he said neutrally. Camilla paused briefly, offering a nod that was more acknowledgement than greeting. Her voice was pleasant, distant. "All in order, Sergeant." Ellis gave the softest pause. "There is a minor irregularity, Mom. The aft cabin didn't respond to standard override. I'd like to initiate a secondary sweep before takeoff." Camilla's face barely changed. Just a subtle stilling around the eyes, a slight lift of her chin. "That door," she said coolly, "is sealed for a reason. Old storage compartment, legacy refurbishment, nothing that concerns security." She turned and continued down the aisle before he could reply. The two aides entered behind her, peeling off, one moving toward the cockpit, the other slipping into the forward prep area. Ellis didn't follow yet. He reached for the comms mic discreetly, his tone still calm. "Northward base control. This is Ellis. Passenger has boarded. After cabin remains sealed with override failure, manifest doesn't reflect cabin usage. Requesting custodial standby authorization. Recommend hold on departure." There was a long pause on the other end. "Copy, Sergeant." Custodial ping initiated. "You are authorized to maintain aircraft presence. Do not escalate." He clicked off and exhaled. T wasn't even annoyed. It was careful. Too careful. He stepped back into the main cabin and saw her seated just behind the partition wall, posture upright, hands folded in her lap. She wasn't looking at anyone. She didn't have to. Everything about her said, "Let this fly. Don't interfere." But Ellis had seen what lay behind sealed doors before, and this time, the door had locked from within. Ellis moved forward into the cockpit threshold. Just as the forward systems panel lit up with sequential green flickers, pre-flight activation was underway. Switches toggled in steady rhythm. Hydraulics cycled. The scent of fuel and ozone had begun seeping in through the deck grates. Captain Jace Merrow didn't look up. He was already belted in, headset pulled half down, scribbling into a laminated flight manifest with a pen that looked older than the tablet Ellis carried. His jaw was clenched, eyes locked on the secondary throttle indicators as he adjusted the pitch values with short, deliberate flicks. Ellis knocked once against the cockpit frame. Captain Merrow didn't flinch. Just signed the document and held it out sideways, still without turning. "All cleared, Sergeant. Take off in 8 minutes. Weather's smooth over the corridor. We'll be down inside the hour." Ellis didn't move to take it. "I'll need to verify your current flight credentials before departure." At that, Merrow hesitated. Just briefly, but it was enough. He slowly turned his head, finally meeting Ellis's eyes. There was no hostility there, but there wasn't confidence either, just tired familiarity, like a man who'd run this scene before and didn't expect it to end any differently. "You know who I am." Ellis didn't blink. "That's not the same as clearance." Merrow reached into his side pocket and handed over a faded ID card laminated yellowed at the corners with an outdated Clarence House insignia. Ellis scanned it with his band. Jace Merrow. Flight ID 740AJ. Contract terminated. 2008. Disciplinary withdrawal logged. The footnote read, "Unauthorized deviation from scheduled route. Consort-related discretion incident. Internal review concluded." Ellis lowered the scanner. "You haven't flown Royal since 2008. Merrow shrugged. "Sometimes discretion takes a different form, Sergeant." Outside, runway strobes blinked. "Northwood Tower, this is Alpha Juliet 9, Merrow radioed. "Requesting early departure under priority consort directive." Ellis keyed his mic. "Northwood, Coldstream Aviation Security. Negative on slot custodial authority pending. This aircraft is under hold." The cockpit went quiet. On his tablet, Ellis pulled Merrow's record. 5 years flying solely for Camilla. Multiple trips marked not for custodial audit, a callback. Not a coincidence. Ellis stepped into the cabin. The sealed rear compartment bothered him more than the pilot. A hidden secondary lock sat beneath a broken maintenance seal, adhesive still tacky. The logs showed no upgrade, just a single 2010 note. Refit deferred, interior retained for historical continuity. Camilla watched him. "Sergeant, will you hover near that door much longer? There's a discrepancy in the locking system, ma'am. I need to inspect it before departure. That compartment is unused. We leave in 10 minutes. No hold." His comm vibrated. "The custodian channel, this is William." Ellis reported the legacy override, an unlogged compartment. "That door opens before wheels leave the ground," William said. Camilla stepped into the aisle. "Whatever you think you'll find, it isn't a threat. Some history is private. With respect, ma'am, this is a state aircraft. The manifest doesn't match what's on board. You open that door," she whispered, "and you end the last part of my life that was ever truly mine." He turned the key. Inside sat an elderly man wearing the discreet brooch of a former royal equerry. Just a hidden loyalty, dragged into the light.